So, I've been going through an interesting experience this week that is the perfect allegory, the perfect comparison for where we're at collectively as a country. And in order to tell you the story, I'm going to have to spill the family tea. You're welcome. So, my grandfather died this past week, and before you offer any sympathy, no need. He was someone that my parents, my siblings, we've had to remove from our lives over a decade ago because of chronic bad behavior. Now, the problems existed long before I was born, and I'm 42 years old, so this tells you how long we've been dealing with this shit. It's your classic narcissist paradigm, has to be at the center, and if you contradict their version of reality, you are going to be the one who is attacked. You will be the one who suffers. They escape responsibility and they spend all of their energy slandering you to anyone who will listen. Which makes it super complicated because this is a big old Mormon family. My dad is one of 7, and my grandpa is the youngest of 14, so there are a lot of us. A lot of us in this family, and a lot of us we have been slandered to. So after years of repeated attempts to sit down, to talk it out, to call him out on his bad behavior and try to create a path for reconciliation, not having it. It all got blown up in our faces. So the healthiest thing for us to do was set a boundary and go no contact. And I can say this now that we're how many years, maybe a dozen years down from this decision. It was truly the best decision we made for ourselves. Just the night and day difference in our mental health when we ended this dynamic. Oh, thriving, thriving. But now with his passing, brings up a lot of stuff, understandably. So that's the parallel number 1 to what I've been talking about here the past few weeks. As we're going through a very emotionally charged time, you guys have heard me say time and time again that the best way, really the only way, to make it through an intense time like this is to do our inner work. Heal your own emotions, heal your own shadows, sit with what this all is bringing up in you. Work through and process that, because only after you've done that can you come into any sort of peace and any sort of personal power. And I'm really seeing that with my grandfather's passing. I've done the work. I'm done. I have no emotion over this. To me, it's just the end of a cycle that has been long and drawn out. For other members of the family, admittedly, those who had a worse dynamic with them than I, this is trickier for them, and a lot of unprocessed stuff is coming up now finally to be dealt with, so it's pretty intense. But the biggest parallel with all this stuff that I can see is you've got my grandfather who was at the head of this family, who would charm the pants off of anyone who will listen, and then you've had extended family members who have been given the truth about his behavior, and they've likely experienced their own dynamic with him that would shed clues into the truth of this man and his personality. They've had access to all the information they needed to have to understand the truth of his behavior. And you can imagine, not many of them have chosen to see and accept that as their truth. We have so many family members who have just said, maybe he's been bad to you, but he hasn't been bad to me, so it's fine. Let's all be at peace. They've chosen to ignore the data, ignore the information. Others who have kind of violently chosen to oppose that information and take very firm sides and make this even more complicated. And I just can't help but see the parallel to people who have either believed the orange one is great and awesome and fallen for all his charms and his braggadocio. And then there's other people who were like, well, he's not that bad and we're just going to make peace with it and it's fine. And because we need his policies, we need the red party to win because they're the Christian party. It's just fascinating. It's fascinating to see the psychology of people who've been given the truth about a person or a dynamic, and they refuse. They refuse to accept that as truth no matter how much evidence you've given them. And what's crazy is, like, if we're being honest, we could look at those people and say, maybe they chose a much more peaceful path than I have. Maybe just quietly accepting it and choosing to only see what they want to see, maybe that's given a more peaceful path to their lives. And yeah, if your life is about peace only and not rocking the boat, but what if your life is about growth? What if your life is about honesty? What if your life is about holding people accountable or bringing people to justice who really need their asses handed to them for all the shit they've been doing? Peace in life is not the only goal. It certainly shouldn't be if you choose to incarnate on Earth. This is kind of a rough one here. The reason we come to Earth is to use the contrast for our growth. So if people are being faced with a choice, hey, I know you believe this thing, But did you also know that this thing is true? People who are refusing to see that truth, sure, they might be protecting their peace in the meantime. But what happens when and if they're confronted with the truth about what's going on? What happens when they can no longer ignore that truth? Now, in the case of my extended family, they can probably be in their ignorance for the rest of their lives, and that will be just fine. But for the whole country, who is now in the find out stage, this will be unignorable. And woe will be the people who are finally seeing the truth that the rest of us have been trying to warn them about for literal years. So that's also why I've been saying all along that we're going to be deeply triggered by what's happening in America right now, because it's the macrocosm of the microcosm. How many of us have been in narcissistic situations or abusive situations, or have woken up to something like religion, where we saw the truth and the rest of the people around us could not? And we were the outliers who were saying, "Are you kidding me? Why? Why can't you see it? Why are you choosing to go along with this?" This is a deeply triggering time for a lot of us. So not only is there fear about the future, there's anguish about the past, about the things we've already been through, that this dynamic is now stirring up. And I just find it so cosmically fascinating that my family is going through the microcosm and the macrocosm. And now that we've just had a national holiday in this country that is very fraught for a lot of people, not only for its origins, the truth about the origin of Thanksgiving Day, as well as our own family dynamics of people traveling for the holidays or not because of rough family dynamics. Is it not the perfect parallel? And that's the cosmic beauty of all of this. When you see the world through the healer's perspective, you see the beauty in all of it. It is all useful. It is all purposeful. And where there's a wound in our life, where there is something that we need to see the truth of, and we need to open that up and excavate the wound and get all of it out, we will be triggered multiple times, as many times as it takes for us to finally see the truth, work through the process, and then heal it. And that's what's happening for our country. Our country is a family, and we got some skeletons in our closets. And we are repeating history left and right. And it's getting louder and louder and more uncomfortable every time. Remember when I talked about the mastery lesson and the spiral? We're doing this as a country, as a human family, for the world. And that's why I see the beauty in all of this. We're being triggered. We're being pushed. We're repeating history. So enough people will wake up and say, "I've had it with this shit. We're not doing that. We're not going back. I'm not doing it that way." And I no longer have patience for you people who refuse to see the truth. We are going to fight for a better future. We are going to hope for a better future. We are going to keep our hope alive as we go forward and make the changes that we want to see. So if you are in the midst of your own personal and collective crisis, you are right on time. We are healing it all together. So I've got some great healing events coming up. I'm going to go back to doing circles now that the holiday is over. I've got great opportunities to help you through this process if you're going through it. You guys, we did not get off the timeline. We did not get off the path. This is the path. That's how I know we're headed somewhere good, because we are seeing the unraveling of everything we've been victims of for how many years. We're seeing it unfolding. It is unraveling at an unprecedented rate. And I am thrilled for the future, because I know that when we work through this shit, healed, we are going to be healed. We are going to be whole for maybe the first time ever as a nation. I have hope, and I'm so excited for the future.